Ask you, since I have you here, you running for president in 2020?
Well, I joke often that I'm running from the president right now. The reality is look, we got a real job ahead of us down here in Washington, throughout this nation, with Donald Trump at the helm, coming after civil rights, voting rights, undermining our health care. This is a full-time job. This is my focus right now. Right now, my job is being New Jersey Senator.
That was a good one, running from the president. All right, for Democrats and even some Republicans, the next presidential election cannot come soon enough. And with Trump's approval ratings plunging to new lows, the Democratic Party is in a key position to mobilize for 2020. But the party's rising stars still have an uphill battle with progressive infighting and the Trump machine working hard to undermine them. So will the next progressive leader in this era of Trump be someone like Cory Booker or maybe his colleague in the Senate, Kamala Harris? Well, not if some self-described progressives have their way. Back with me, Jason Johnson of TheRoot.com. Joining me now, Zerlina Maxwell, Director of Progressive Programming at SiriusXM. Congrats on that. And former DNC Chair Howard Dean. All right, Hodo is here with us. All right, let's go around the horn. Because what basically happened this week, guys, is that on Monday, there was a Mike.com article that went up, the headline of which was Rising Star Kamala Harris Has a Bernie Land Problem. It quoted several people, including Winnie Wong, who co-founded People for Bernie, who's saying her recent anointing is extremely telling. These donors will line her coffers and she'll had the next 2 years to craft a message of broad appeal, blah, blah, blah. She was very upset that she was getting all this treatment. Then you have Ryan Cooper come out in an article in The Week on Thursday saying similar things, saying why leftists don't trust Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, and Deval Patrick. Look at that headline. 3 people of color, 3 black Democrats, Kamala Harris is black and Asian American, and saying they are the problem, which set off a whole thing, Zerlina. You had a lot of people get involved. Sam Singh-Yanwei tweeted a tweet storm about it. He got attacked. By several people, and then Brittany Packnett came to his defense and said, wait a minute, I was in meetings too with Bernie Sanders and he had issues talking about race. So now you have the two sides backfighting again. What is happening here?
Well, I think that the ideological purity that some Bernie Sanders supporters want to implement in the Democratic Party is really a manifestation of privilege, because people of color and women who are running for office can't abide by purity tests because of the structural difficulties in running for office. And the bottom line here is you need money to win an election. And if Kamala Harris needs to talk to some big money donors in order to win an election so that we can overturn Citizens United, because you can't do that unless you win an election, I'm not opposed to that. I think that we need to give her an opportunity to shine or not shine.
Yeah.
We shouldn't undercut her before she even begins.
And you're seeing a lot of people sort of going in and already sort of pre-litigating her, Jason, saying, well, you know, she was a prosecutor, so we can't trust her. We think that on prison issues, she's bad. Like, literally sort of setting her up and saying, well, she's already unacceptable.
Here's the thing, Joy, and I think this is the part that some people on the left have already forgotten. Kamala Harris has her own Bayhive, right? Like, I mean, there are people who protect her and who love her to death. She is the one name that all my friends and families like, you think she's going to run? You think she's going to run? And rather than criticizing that, and rather than saying, and look, when you're a state prosecutor, there's going to be some issues, the Democrats should be embracing anyone who elicits that level of excitement. If you ask Democrats now, it's Bernie Sanders or Kamala Harris. So rather than being critical, I completely agree with Zerlina. Let her do her job. Let her build her resume up, because the Democrats are going to need as many stars as possible to go against Trump in 2020.
And Howard Dean, you've been on sort of both sides of this. I mean, the Howard Dean phenomenon in 2004 was genuine. I mean, you were the outsider guy who was saying you were representing the Democratic wing of the Democratic Party, and then you sort of eventually got to the point where you were being attacked by some of the people from the progressive wing saying, well, you're establishment now. So this line between who's establishment and who's insurgent kind of gets blurred. You know, is there any pleasing a certain set of progressives who essentially think anyone who isn't Bernie Sanders is not progressive enough?
It's not so much about Bernie Sanders. This has been going on forever in the left. First of all, let's remember the vast majority of Bernie Sanders supporters ended up supporting Hillary Clinton.
Correct.
And that's what's going to happen every time. We've got to come together. We can't have this stuff. There has always been a section of the left, which I call as the whiny party, the party that doesn't really want to win. They just want to be pure. And if they go down swinging purely, then that's fine. Well, the problem with that is it leaves behind the people who really need their help. If we're going to have a single payer or Medicare for all or whatever we're going to have in health care that covers every American, as every other industrialized country has, then we all have to pull together. And people who sit out or crank on some candidate because they did this or that, it wasn't to their purity test, are basically turning their back on the very people they pretend to represent. So I don't have a lot of patience with this wing of the progressive party, and this is a lot of this is a media creation. The media sees conflict, it creates this to-do. There are not a lot of people that feel the way that you all described about Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
You know, I think we just have to get a life and pull together and do what's right for the country instead of having these silly fights among ourselves, which I have to say are perpetrated in part by the media.
No, and it is true because, you know, the Mike article and the Week article basically quoted the same three people, right?
Exactly.
Right. They're not quoting broad
Right,
swaths of
exactly.
people. Yeah.
And I
Exactly.
think to Howard's point, it's really important to understand that the people who are like, well, I don't like Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, so I'm voting third party. Thank you very much. Now we have President Donald Trump. And the people who are being most impacted by the policies are people of color and lower income people. And if you are truly progressive, you don't want a President Donald Trump because you're supposed to care about those marginalized people.
And let's talk about the big old black elephant in the room, okay? These are a lot of African Americans, and the future of the Democratic Party is going to have to be black, it's going to have to be female, it's going to have to be brown. And this fear, I hear this all the time from Democrats, this fear that's like, look, if we're going to lose these working class white voters, look, Democrats have been losing white people for years.
Right.
It's not going to be any worse if you have Cory Booker.
More like decades.
Right.
Yeah, since Lyndon Johnson. Jason Johnson, Zerlina Maxwell, Howard Dean. I wish we had more time. We'll bring you guys back and do it again. Up next, the movie